Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. Just to do a quick intro on myself. My name is Junie. I'm a product manager at eero. I've been at eero for over 7 years. I'm part of PAVE, also known as Pan Asian Voice of eero Affinity Group. And I'm one of the community members, excited to be helping with organizing events for AAPI Heritage Month. For those of you guys don't know, AAPI Heritage Month is actually the month of May, and it's officially recognized to celebrate the history, the culture, and achievements of Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Americans. And today we have Lorraine Lee joining us today at eero to celebrate AAPI Heritage Month to talk about how to build influence, which we're really excited about. To give a quick intro on Lorraine, she is a top virtual keynote speaker for global audiences ranging from the Fortune 100 to startups. She's an 11-time LinkedIn learning instructor with over 300K LinkedIn followers and brings 10 years of experience leading editorial teams on top tech firms. So very impressive background and really excited to have Lorraine here. We will be doing Q&A at the very end, so if you have any questions, please flow them into the chat. And with that, I'll hand it off to Lorraine.
Thanks, Junie, and thank you, Amy. And hello, everyone. It is so nice to see you all today, and thank you for tuning in. So I'd like to start off with a question for all of you. What brought you to this session today? Do you have a specific goal that you're trying to reach? Are you facing particular challenges on your team? So if you could let me know in the chat. And while you're all thinking about your responses, I'd like to share, why I find influence so important. So influence to me means being more visible to leadership, and ideally that would lead to a promotion or some sort of career advancement. So anytime I've seen talks about influence, that's personally my goal for attending, but would love to hear from all of you. What brought you here today? So I'll give it 30 seconds or so, and then we'll move on if no one wants to jump in. Oh, Barry, thank you. Success of my job depends on influencing others. Yes, very true for all of us. Do you need to get insights into how I can be more influential at work? Great. All right, anyone else? Amy wants to find her authentic leadership voice at work. Amazing. Kareen +1. Probably to all those things, right? Christian, I also think it's important to getting decisions made and getting things done, of course. And Priya, to have influence means to be heard. Yeah, this is perfect. All amazing responses. So some of you touched on a few of these things, but when you can influence well, you can be seen as more persuasive. You maybe get promoted, you get raises from that. We all like that, right? You become a stronger leader, and you build better working relationships. All of these can happen when you can influence well. And when you can influence, you have the ability to affect, transform, or sway people or situations. And ideally, we're going to do it
recording in progress
that allows us to reach these type of goals. Now, even with this definition here, I sometimes find that influence can be a little bit of an intangible thing. So we're going to make it more tangible today with something I created called the RAVE model. And that's going to help us learn how we can build influence both virtually and in person. But before we dive into the RAVE model, I want to set the scene a bit for why influence is so important, especially when it comes to the AAPI community, by sharing some recent data with you. So only 28% of Asian Americans in the US say they are extremely or very satisfied with how much they are paid. And that is the lowest percentage of all of the racial groups in a recent Pew study. They were also the racial group to be least satisfied with their relationships with their boss. Only 54% of Asian Americans say their contributions are valued a great deal or fair amount. And again, that was the lowest out of all the groups surveyed. And this study by McKinsey shows that as Asians move into senior levels, the percentage of Asian Americans represented drops. And even though Asians represent 13% of the US professional workforce, only 6% are found in executive roles, according to Ascend, which is a Pan-Asian New York City-based nonprofit for business professionals. Now, data like this is what led to the coining of the term bamboo ceiling. So similar to the glass ceiling for women, the bamboo ceiling is that invisible barrier that is preventing Asians from reaching senior management. So what is causing this discrepancy? Now, some of it can be maybe attributed to differences in cultural upbringing, but we also face stereotypes. For example, the model minority stereotype makes it easy for others to assume that Asian Americans are doing well at work and they don't need any support. We also face the perpetual foreigner mindset, which is essentially the opposite. We're viewed as outsiders and aren't looked at as contenders for advancement compared to maybe more in crowds. And then we have to face the stereotype that we're doers, we're not leaders, we're quiet, we put our heads down, and we do the work, but maybe we lack some of the soft skills and creativity to lead. Now, I know I shared a lot of kind of bleak stats with you, not great stereotypes, but we do have the ability to take at least some of this into our own hands. So we're not going to figure all of this out today, but what we can do today is tackle our mindset and learn the skills and knowledge that we don't always have access to due to a lack of available training. So our mindset and skills combined will be an important piece to us pushing against some of these stereotypes and helping us to really gain influence. Now, I also want to share some limiting thoughts I've had before, whether caused by my upbringing or just because I wasn't told otherwise, and how I've been able to shift my mindset. Because when I was able to shift my mindset, it was just such a game changer in terms of how I presented myself at work. Now, the first thing is that it's important to remember that we are our own best advocates at work. So think of yourself as the founder of your own business within the broader corporate environment. So your business is going to be you, your product is the work that you deliver, and your branding is how others perceive you. So all of these things come together to create a strong presence, which in turn is going to lead to strong influence. So here are a few examples I've gone through to shift my mindset. So way back in the day, I used to think that I was bothering people when I shared my thoughts or concerns. And then I realized, no, I'm not bothering them, and that leaders actually need to be the ones sharing opinions and ideas. I used to think that, this was a big one for me, my hard work will be seen and rewarded. And then I realized over time this isn't true. We need to advocate for ourselves, and especially as we get into more senior positions, we really need to advocate for ourselves. So these are other few outcomes of mindset shifts that have helped me. So I started thinking about my managers and colleagues as my customers. I realized that my job isn't just my work. I needed to learn about the business. I realized that sharing accomplishments actually is part of my job. Before I used to feel maybe uncomfortable kind of self-promoting, but I realized that I can still be genuine about it and still get my work out there. And then I also realized it's not just about what I do in the office that contributes to my influence. So we're going to touch on a lot of these points today for how you can get there. And again, we're not going to fix all these issues I mentioned in one day, but by thinking differently about how we approach work and really advocating for ourselves, combined with the tactical tips I'm going to share, you are going to start building your visibility and influence at work. If you don't show up confident and show that you believe in yourself, others have no reason to either, right? So the RAVE model today is going to help you build that confidence and influence. Now, before I dive into exactly what the RAVE model is, I want to share again just a little bit about who I am. My name is Lorraine. I help professionals and organizations stand out and supercharge their professional presence. And I mean presence in both senses of the word. So how you come across to others and where others come across you. And I really see influence as the intersection of those two things. I'm also a virtual speaker and consultant at my company Rise Learning Solutions. And before that, I was the head of editorial at Prezi, a presentation platform. I'm also a LinkedIn Learn instructor, as Junie mentioned, and I was an editor at LinkedIn for 6 years, so I'm very active on that platform. I would love for all of you to connect with me there. Feel free to take screenshots too at any point during this session and tag me, post it on LinkedIn later, tag me, tag eero, and then we can keep the conversation going even after we have to say bye today. So what is the RAVE model exactly? RAVE stands for relationships, appearances, visibility, and expertise. These are the 4 key criteria that can help you build your influence, whether you are virtual or in the office, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or whether you're junior or more senior. This is going to move that intangible, definition of influence into more of a tangible state, and of course, give you the knowledge and practical tips so you can become more influential to reach your goals. So I want to start off diving into our relationships. Relationships are such a big piece of influence. Influence in the workplace inherently involves someone else, right? And I know some of you mentioned your goals earlier were to influence others on your team. There needs to be someone else on the other side. If we want that promotion or if we want others to see us as a leader, there's got to be someone else there. So when it comes to building relationships, I want you to think about these two categories. The first is going to be interpersonal communication, which is made up of managing up, using collaborative language, and turning off autopilot. And then we're also going to want to think about building trust. So we're going to start off with this communication piece here. Now, we all like to work with and spend time with and advocate for people we actually like and who we think do great work, right? Which is why this section is so crucial. So I want to start off talking about managing up. We saw earlier in the Pew study that Asian Americans are the group to be least happy with their relationship with their boss. And managing up is such an important thing because the more you do it, the more your boss will see your value. And of course, if they see your value, they're likely going to be more invested in your growth, look to you for input, and then want to advocate for you when it comes time for the promotion or to assign a major project. It's also going to be something that helps others see you as a leader instead of just a doer. Too often people think the manager is the boss and they default to whatever the manager says. But again, I want you to remember you are the boss of your own career and you're going to be your own best advocate. So here are a few common phrases I see that happen between managers and direct reports and how you might transform those. So this is one I would do a lot early on in my career. So I would think I was doing a good job. I was bringing up an issue and I just asked the manager, like, can you help me? Like, how should we solve this? Instead, if you want to be a leader, if you want to manage up well and help your boss, you would say something like, there's an issue here. I recommend doing X because of Y. So offering up the recommendation, a solution, makes your manager's life easier, which makes them happier and want to have you contribute to more things. And again, you're just doing a really great job managing up when you can do that. Maybe some of you were brought up to always respect authority, and so you become a yes person. So your response is always, yes, I'll do it ASAP. Instead, it's going to be important that you're someone who can actually prioritize work and not get burnt out from saying yes to everything. So instead, you might say, I'm happy to help. You know, I have X, Y, Z on my plate. How would you like me to prioritize these things? So it's showing that you're being strategic, not just doing work in the order that it comes in, and also just making sure you know that certain things are going to take more priority and you want to be able to order those appropriately. Sometimes managing up also means pushing back. So you might not normally always agree with your boss because, again, sometimes we, as a child, we've been taught that our elders know best. But instead, you might try, have we also considered X for these 3 reasons? And here you're asserting your opinion and you're showing that you're thinking critically and strategically. And this one happens a lot as well. You are sharing a lot of backstory that's often not needed because I get it. Oftentimes if we're working on something, we have all the details in our heads and the backstory is going to be really interesting to us, but it's only going to be interesting to us for the most part. Instead, you want to share the main point and message up front, then share any necessary context after. So time for our first group activity. This is going to be an interactive session, so we'll have a lot of these group activities throughout. I want you to let me know, out of all the ones I shared just now, which one you might want to try using next time you meet with your boss, or maybe you've used this or different ones before and you've had a past example of something that has worked well. So let me know in the chat which one you'd like to use moving forward, or share an example of one you've already used that worked well. I think for myself, I alluded to this earlier, the solutions one was really big, and realizing that I had to come to the table with recommendations. That is something that I was not taught until a little bit later on in my career. So I'll give it about 45 seconds for everyone to chime in, and then we'll move on if no one wants to add anything, but would love to hear, you know, which one resonates with you, which one have you experienced, which one have you seen others using. Yeah, Amy, explaining the issue concisely. Yes, that is an important one. We are all so busy during our days and you just want to know, you know, what's the issue, what's the solution. Giving all the backstory that doesn't need to be known is just better to leave it out. All right, well, if no one has anything else to add, there will be more group activities down the line, so I hope to hear from you all later. Next, you also want to incorporate more collaborative language when you interact with others. So the language we use can help us be seen as a leader and help us to be better managers. Now, it's often said that charismatic and influential leaders are those who make us feel really good about ourselves and those who can motivate us. And using collaborative language helps us get one step closer. If the person you're talking to feels like they're part of something, like they're part of a group, they're likely going to be more motivated to contribute and bring their best self into the discussion. And you have the opportunity to be that person. And there's some research behind this. So according to research published in the Harvard Business Review, people who use I statements were typically more junior, whereas the confident leaders didn't feel the need to call attention to themselves. And they use a lot of this collaborative language, the we, the us, the our, and they really always try to refer and draw attention to the collective group or team. Now, I've seen in corporate America how sometimes it can feel like the loud person who always focuses on the I gets attention. So I was personally very happy to see this research. Next, I want to talk about how we can turn off autopilot. So, time for another group activity. I'm curious to hear from you all. What is typically the first thing you hear when you hop on a video call or when you run into someone at the office? So I'm going to give you a few options. Each is going to have a corresponding number that I want you to type into the chat. So which one do you hear most often on calls or in person? How are you? Can you see my screen? How's the weather? Or if it's something else entirely, let me know what it is in the chat. So which one do you see, or which one do you hear most often when you meet up with someone? Junie 1. Corinne, how was your weekend? That's another popular one. Barry, number 2. Got some ones. I think we have about half the group who's voted so far. All right, so it looks like, let's say 1. How are you? Is the winner. Not surprising, right? So unfortunately, if you are someone who is just using these phrases without some sort of follow-up, it's not going to be the ideal way to be memorable and build rapport. And yes, sometimes we do actually want to know how the weather is because it's been crazy, but generally these questions, as you can all see in the chat, they're pretty generic. They can sometimes make you seem unprepared, and they don't help you stand out because we are hearing these questions all the time. How about we change those questions to ones like, it is so great to see you. It's been a while. I'd love to hear what you're most excited to be working on right now. Instead of the usual, how are you? How's work been going? Is it busy? Or I think it was Karine who said, how was your weekend, right? Instead of that, how about what was the highlight of your weekend? Because usually when you ask, how was your weekend, people usually respond with, oh, it was good. Or are you watching any interesting shows? What do you recommend? Or you might try these. What did you like about the last team check-in? You might not even ask a question, just volunteer some information about yourself. That's great too. I'm going on a trip next week. Oh, okay. It gives them something to jump off of and some questions to ask you, and they get to know you a little bit better. Or does anyone watch X show? What did you think of the season finale? Now, questions like these break up the monotony we usually experience. Again, when we engage in that small talk, they awaken the brain out of autopilot because we're not normally used to hearing these questions, and you start being associated with more positive conversation. And if you can be that person to help turn that autopilot small talk into more interesting conversations where you actually learn more about each other and get to know each other, you instantly become more memorable, which does impact your influence. People are going to just be more likely to gravitate towards you. They'll like you more as a person. Now, together as a group, I want you all to think about a question you might use on your next call and share it in the chat right now. So it can be any of these that I brought up. It can be something totally out of left field that you just want to experiment with on your next call. But let me know, just, commit to one of these questions, one of these 3 or the other 3 I brought up before that you might use on a call to start off the conversation. Thanks, Junie, for the +1. So which question resonated with you? I personally like sharing information about myself because I feel like the other side is usually stuck in autopilot. So when I can share something, it kind of shows them that I'm open to more conversation and wanting to learn about the other person. Any of these questions resonate with you all? I'll give you about 20 more seconds to to pick your favorite, and then we'll move on. Christian, I liked the what was the highlight of your weekend? Yeah, that's a nice one for them to actually pinpoint something specific for you to go off of. All right, we're going to keep it moving. If anything else comes to you, feel free to add it to the chat. Oh, Junie, I'm trying out some new fun activity outside work. Are there any activities you enjoy doing outside of work? Love it. Gives you a chance to share about you, and then you also learn about them. So next, I want to show you one common scenario we see both in person and virtually, and how we can create more influence in those conversations when we turn off autopilot. So this is your typical conversation. Again, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Good, thanks. Again, not the ideal scenario. We're missing out on a lot of opportunities to influence and get to know each other. So how about instead we change the conversation to something like this? How are you? Great, we're about to close one of our biggest deals this quarter. I've loved working cross-functionally with the data team on this. So you are taking the opportunity here to influence. You know, people always ask, how are we doing? Why not give them some other information? So you're taking the opportunity to influence and build relationships. You're sharing more about your work. You're sharing that you like collaborating. These are all wonderful things. Now, some of you may be thinking, you know, I don't want to come across like I'm bragging in every conversation or always talking about myself, which very valid concern. I get it. My suggestion is to frame things in a way so that you're talking about the team's efforts and showing how you're contributing to the bottom line. And then we'll also talk about this a little bit more later today. And I think a big part of this, someone unmuted?
Tailoring. Sorry, I had a question. Does it come across as genuine? Like, I don't know if I can make it sound.
Yeah. Great question. So I'll just touch on that right now. So I was going to say, like, this section is called relationships, right? If you have a good relationship and people know who you are and the fact that you have good intentions, it's going to come across in a more genuine way. Of course, if you're just coming in hot with this and you don't know the person at all, it's going to be like, whoa, who are you? But again, we're building these relationships over time so that people know you, they know your intentions, and framing it in a certain way where it's not like me, but like, this is how I'm helping the company, this is the team's success, that it will come across a lot more genuine in that way. And again, I'll give you some questions all later that will help you kind of frame this so it comes off a little bit more authentic. Thank you for your question. So next, let's talk about how to build trust with each other, which I firmly believe is one of the most important pieces to relationship building and can be one of the quickest ways to turn coworkers very bitter against each other if it's not done well. So I'm curious, like, how many of us have been in conversations like this? I know I've been in many of these. So I'm asking the person, can you get this to me by Tuesday? They commit, sure. Tuesday comes around. Hey there, what's the status of this? Oh, I'm so sorry. I got caught up doing other things. Can I send it to you later this week? Now, things happen. Sometimes deadlines get missed. I know everyone's very busy, but if this is a situation that your coworkers are experiencing from you, more often than not, it's going to be something that you have to fix because it's damaging your relationships. So let's compare that to this conversation instead. Can you get this to me by Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific? Sure. Tuesday comes around. Here's the first part, confirming I'm on the right track. Let me know. Okay, you're on the right track. Now Friday comes around. Here's the deliverable I promised. Now there are a few things here that are helping to build influence for both parties. So notice there is a very specific deadline requested, both in terms of day, time, and time zone. This person is communicating clearly. The person doing the work is agile in their process. Now, I'm a big advocate, even though I'm a perfectionist, I am just such an advocate for not needing to complete a project 100% before showing it to someone, because if I'm completely on the wrong track, I've just wasted all of that time. So it's always better to ensure that you're on the right track earlier on and check in like this person is doing here. Now, the person doing the work actually turns in their work ahead of deadline, which of course is not necessary, but at least turn it in on deadline, which is what they did, makes a great impression. Now, these two people, they're working well together, and you can bet if I was this person up top asking for something, I'm going to trust this person next time an important project comes around. I really, really believe that being that reliable and trusted teammate is so underestimated and just such an important trait in the workplace, especially with influence and being able to be trusted and relied on. So, imitating this and just really following through is going to go a long way. So we've covered the relationships portion of rave. Let's recap. We talked about interpersonal communication, which includes managing up, inclusive language, and turning off autopilot. And then we talked about building trust, which includes deadlines and agile work. So let me know in the chat, which one do you want to focus on first out of all of those things? So interpersonal communication, which includes managing up, inclusive language, and turning off autopilot, and building trust, which includes deadlines and agile work. Which one will you commit to? I'll give it another 45 seconds again before we keep going. Amy, managing up, love it. That's a very big one. Barry, the relationships, yeah. Junie, the first one. Yeah, and you can't go wrong with any of these. Choose one that's going to make a positive difference. All right. Well, we'll keep moving on, but feel free again to keep adding in the chat. So let's move on to the A, appearances. Now, appearances, not to be confused with visibility. Appearances are how you look to others. And if you look good, you'll feel good, and others are going to view you more favorably. So let's take a look at what this entails. Appearances are made up of body language, eye contact, and your face. So let's start off with body language. There are two situations we see often, both on video and in person, and both are not ideal. So we're going to look at these two images as a group together. Can anyone give me a guess as to what the person on the video call is missing when it comes to body language? And for the second one, can anyone give me a guess as to why this person is maybe not the most welcoming with their body language? So make a guess for one or both, but let me know in the chat, what do you think is missing, or what do you think these two people can do better to improve their body language? Karine, too close to screen and cross arms, perfect. Junie, cross arms, closed off. Yeah, both of these, completely accurate. Ryan, +1. It's always fun to see what people point out. Okay, amazing. Yeah, I mean, these are all completely accurate. So let's look at some of the ways that you can improve this. The first person, notice their framing. They're using their hands on camera, and you can see more of their body. Now, when you can use your hands on camera, you are seen as more trustworthy, more personable, warmer, energetic. So many positive things, right? The second person, chest is open, using their hands, right? Now, people are going to be a lot more likely to gravitate to both of these people and view them in a more favorable light because they're being a lot more welcoming and personable. Now, being open in person is probably going to be a little bit more natural to us just because we have that immediate feedback in person. Often where I find people struggling is with video, so I want to dive into that a little bit more. For video, I want you to make sure that your framing is correct so you can get your hands on screen. So this is what I often see when people are on video, and this is what we saw with that person before. Now with this angle, sometimes I see like up people's nose, under their chin, and it just doesn't look very professional. And it can actually be uncomfortable to the other side, and there's a scientific reason for this. So people skills expert Vanessa Van Edwards says that this is because this feeling of being too close on camera replicates what we feel in person when someone gets in a personal bubble, right? Our brain's reaction is to think, okay, this person is like way too close, I'm uncomfortable. It actually activates our amygdala, which processes fear. And of course, fear is not a feeling we want to be giving others on a video call. So your video should ideally show your shoulders, you want a little bit of your torso, and then you want a little bit of space above your head. So 3 to 5 fingers worth. And when you do this, notice I'm no longer just that floating head. I get my hands on screen, I can show more body gestures. And again, when you show your hands on screen, so many benefits, right? So I want us to do another group activity to make sure we are all set up with the right distance from the camera. So I see Junie's camera on. If anyone else wants to turn on their camera, we're a small enough group where I can give some quick feedback to you all. But essentially what we're going to do, we are going to stick out our arms and make sure that we have an arm's length of distance between ourselves and the camera. If you have less than an arm's length of distance, you are likely too close, so push your camera back. And if it's too far away, you're going to be probably looking like this, too small on camera, not taking up enough of the screen. All right, we got a few cameras on. Everyone looks pretty good. Ryan, Christian, Chris, probably lower your cameras a little bit. Xiaoyu, I think, is that how you pronounce your name? Yeah, quite good. I think you want a little bit more space above your head because right now it looks like you're knocking kind of like a ceiling almost, right, when your head touches. Yeah. Christian, your camera can go even lower. You have a little bit. And Junie as well. Camera can go lower. Nice. Okay. Oh, Xiaoyu, you want to move your camera lower now. You need less space. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, all of you are looking great. So again, like, you know, you some of you just had to turn your screen to make the height difference, but you can also, if you need to prop up your camera, you can use delivery boxes, use your laptop stand, use books. Like, it does not have to be anything fancy at all. So next, I want to talk about the power of eye contact. So one of the best ways that we connect with each other is through eye contact. And when we're in person, we make eye contact and it releases the social bonding hormone called oxytocin. And also when we shake people's hands and we have that skin to skin contact, it also releases oxytocin. So when we are giving eye contact in person, it's one, we want to keep in mind that we're doing it. And then we also want to keep these things in mind. Now, we don't want to be staring at the other person and giving off, you know, this type of creepy energy. I know, like, we haven't been in person and not as used to social situations, so sometimes we can forget we're like staring too much. But again, you want to make eye contact for about 80% of the time if you're talking to someone. You want to be aware of how much you're blinking. If you do it too much, you might look anxious or stressed. If you're speaking to a group of people, you're going to want to hold eye contact with each person for about 4 to 5 seconds to make sure that everyone feels included. Now, how do we do this virtually? You should always be aimed to be looking at the camera or right below it. So if you want to boost oxytocin virtually, this is going to be one of, by far, the best ways that you can do it. Now, it is human nature to want to look at ourselves to make sure we look okay. Or sometimes someone says something and we want to see how we look reacting to what someone says. But encourage you all to fight that urge. And if you are having trouble not looking at yourself, I recommend turning off self view. And you'll find that when you turn off self view, it actually does wonders to help alleviate video fatigue. Now, I still see a lot of presentations and video calls where people are looking like this. Their content is over here, they're talking, or sometimes a separate monitor entirely, and they're just talking here. And imagine if I gave the whole talk like this, and I'm just talking here the whole time. I mean, you know I'm talking to you, but you're also like, is Lorraine paying attention to me? Like, what is over there that she's looking at? Versus this, I'm looking at you. It just feels so much more engaging. It looks like I'm looking at you. It just feels more like a conversation. So eye contact, so key, and it will take some practice, but it really just goes a long way. And now I cannot even, it's uncomfortable for me to not look at the camera. So next, I want to talk about our faces. So we all have lovely faces. I got to see some of you on camera before, but why is it that so many of us look like this on video? It is called RBF, but not the RBF you might be thinking of. This is resting business face, and we see it so much on video. We need to remember to smile on camera and almost over emote, especially virtually, because there's this additional barrier of the screen that we have to get through. And it makes such a big difference too. When I started doing virtual keynotes, I didn't smile that much at first because I was so nervous all the time. And I got the feedback, Lorraine, you should smile a little bit more, like, and it'll happen as you get more comfortable. And I still remember when I started doing that, I would literally get comments in the chat where people would say, oh, I really like that Lorraine was smiling so much. They actually called it out as something they appreciated. So, same goes with video calls and virtual interactions with one another. The smiling shows that you're happy, that you're enjoying yourself, you are excited about what you're talking about. And even though we're virtual, a smile can still be contagious that way versus, just the neutral face expression. It looks like I just don't want to be here. And if I don't want to be here, it doesn't seem very fun to talk to me, right? But I also want to call out, perhaps more importantly, we need to make sure that we're seeing your face first. So I just want to emphasize really the importance of having your camera on when it's an important meeting or there are stakeholders involved. Because would you rather talk to your colleagues, letter M and ambiguous gray figure, or would you rather talk to these coworkers? We only have so many touch points during our day, especially virtually. So I know it can be kind of tiring having our video on, but it does make a difference. People remember what we look like, they see our faces. We really need to take advantage of these moments where we get in front of leadership. And again, that's going to contribute to our influence. The more people see us, the more they're going to remember us. All right, so with that, we have covered appearances. So again, time to turn to the chat. What do you want to focus on as your next step? So we talked about body language, eye contact, and your face. Which one resonated with you? Now, quite a few of you were working on the body language because you turned on your camera, which was awesome. So body language, eye contact, or your expressions on your face. Which one are you going to keep in mind or work on in your next call? Ryan, eye contact. Nice. That's going to go a long way. Kareen, all of the above. Yay, love to hear it. Oh, and then Junie, sorry, I missed that. Body language and making sure the angle is good on camera. Wonderful. All right. Well, we're going to keep moving. So next up, we have visibility. So as I said before, visibility is going to be different than appearances. So appearances are how you appear to others. Visibility is going to be more about where you appear. And this is going to be important for influence because if you are not in the right places to be seen and recognized, it does not matter how awesome you are, how awesome your work is. Out of sight, out of mind is definitely still a reality for people at work, especially if everyone's in office and you're virtual. So visibility will be key to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. Now, this is often one section, we already had a question about it, that can be a little bit more challenging for the AAPI community because visibility can sometimes feel like speaking up in a way that feels like maybe it goes against our upbringing or just what we're familiar with. But I will share some ways that will allow you to get your voice out there while still doing it in a way that feels genuine. So visibility will include sharing learnings and wins, being where the conversations happen, and my favorite, volunteering to present. Now, in person, it's much easier to be visible because you are physically there in front of leaders and decision makers. But virtually, it can be a little bit more difficult, but it's definitely something attainable for all of us. And the way we're going to do that is by sharing our learnings and wins by answering these two questions. What did you learn, and how can others apply your learnings to their own work? And how did your work contribute to the company's bottom line and your team's goals? Following this format will ensure that you're being as helpful as possible and minimize you feeling like you're bragging about yourself. I mean, I've done this. People love learning about things that can help them do their work better and make them look good, right? And leaders, of course, love knowing that something has contributed to the bottom line. And I know this might feel uncomfortable at first. Many of us grew up in a culture that taught us to do our work, keep our heads down. But again, I want to remind all of you, your business is you, and this is you promoting you. We can't rely on anyone else to advocate for ourselves or even our teams. And I just want to remind you all too, this is a skill. This isn't something we just inherently know how to do. When I was at LinkedIn, I would show my manager emails that I wanted to send out to a bigger listserv, and I would ask different managers at the time. I had one manager, and I would say, ask him, what can I do differently? What might I add? What might I take out? And then I got a new manager and I asked her the same exact things. And it helped a lot to see how they framed things or what they viewed as important to leadership. So over time, I didn't need their support moving forward, but it did help me a lot at the start. Now, something else to keep in mind, in addition to sharing these learnings and wins, is where we actually share them. So in the last two companies that I worked for, my teams published a weekly newsletter, and this was the one that we would publish at my most recent company. So this really allowed our work to be seen by so many more people. We published once a week. People knew what our team did. They knew how we were contributing to the company. It really gave us a lot of visibility. And anything that answered those two questions I shared just now, we would add it in here. We published this on our company's intranet and also created an email listserv people could subscribe to. And this was major, went a long way. I also made sure to share my team's learnings in the channels where executives and decision makers were. If you're not sure where they are, ask your manager. It might be a chat group, it might be an email listserv, an internal company board. Honestly, it's probably great to publish in all three of these places. My former CEO used to say that you need to repeat things 7 times in 7 different ways for people to finally process and register your message, and definitely true virtually where we have so many extra distractions. So again, find out where they are, publish the content. That newsletter I just showed you, that was on the company intranet because we didn't have email listserv, so everyone would go there for their news, and we would have over half the company reading each week, and it was a primarily engineering focused organization. So it was very exciting to know that so much of the company was reading it, and then I would have people regularly reach out and say, oh, you're working on this, have you thought about this? Or we have this data set here that might be relevant for you to look at. So it just also facilitates a lot of really positive cross-functional collaboration. Lastly, you'll want to get comfortable presenting to gain more influence. So presentations and especially public speaking are often people's worst nightmare. So it can trigger fight or flight responses in many of us, and the fear of public speaking is so prevalent, it's even been given a name. It's called glossophobia, in case you didn't know. But despite all of this, I can't emphasize enough what an outsized impact public speaking can have on your career and influence if you can do it well. There's a reason you're viewed so positively when you can do it well, because public speaking takes work, it's uncomfortable, it can be scary. But I promise you, speaking from my own experience, the more you do it, the less scary it becomes. It can open up, and has for me, opened up so many opportunities and outward-facing initiatives that grow your personal brand, both inside and outside of a company. Now, when I started practicing public speaking, I took it upon myself as a personal goal. I would get so sweaty. I could not sleep the night before. I was just a nervous wreck. Now I only sometimes get a little bit sweaty, and I get to meet so many interesting people and talk to companies like you all. So, and I get invited to do podcasts and contribute to articles and speak. And so there's just so much that can come from it. So I want to share a few pieces of advice that can help you get started if this is something that hopefully you're thinking about doing. So I want you to just start small. You don't have to get on stage at the next company offsite as your first presentation. And in fact, just choose a really, really small group of trusted peers and practice presenting in front of them. Maybe you just present something for 30 seconds too. That's great. You'll want to record yourself and do a few takes. See what your presentation tics might be. Mine that I learned when I recorded myself was I do this a lot when I'm nervous. So we all have something like that. So record yourself to see what yours might be. And then lastly, practice. Practice does make such a difference, even though it's kind of cliche, obvious advice. You can practice with your friend, with your manager, and just get feedback from them. Figure out what's working and what's not. And so being a confident public speaker it does wonders for your career. When you get asked to do more things internally, sometimes you get asked to do things externally, and I'm so excited for you all to dive into that. And so on that note, we have covered visibility. So I want to ask you again, what will you all focus on first? Are you going to share your learnings and wins, be where the conversations happen, or are you going to try to volunteer and present? Again, that's sharing learnings and wins, being where the conversations happen, and volunteering to present. Which one resonates with you? Christian, sharing learnings. Yes, that's a great one. All right, all of you so far, sharing learnings and wins. Love it. This is such a special one because it's just such a big piece of advocating for ourselves. All right, thank you for sharing. That leads us to our last section and shortest section, expertise. So expertise, I like to think of it as the extra cherry on top. It combines all the different aspects of the RAVE model or the RAV and will allow you to build your influence simultaneously, again, both inside and outside of the office to really help you stand out. Because your influence, your confidence will also come from what you bring outside of the office, whether it's writing a blog, maybe you're hosting a podcast, or you're doing some speaking. So today we're going to talk about the role, of course, LinkedIn, I work there, the role that LinkedIn plays in expertise, and that includes sharing content, commenting, and networking. And I want you to think of LinkedIn as our virtual office. Now, LinkedIn is no longer just a jobs and resume site. It's a place where you go to build thought leadership and visibility. And when you can do it well, it does elevate your presence at your current job. There is, of course, so much you can do on LinkedIn. I have a whole separate talk on it, but today I want to touch on a few key areas to just get you to start thinking about LinkedIn a little bit differently and ways that you can build your thought leadership and influence both externally and internally at your company. So there are a lot of different content formats you can post on LinkedIn. I first want to share just a brief list to show that there are different options for everyone. We have text only, text and a link, text and an image, which tends to get 2 times more comments. We have videos, articles and newsletters, documents, which you can use in a carousel format, and polls. Now my favorite are personally video, and then the text and image, and then sometimes I like to throw in a poll every now and then. In terms of types of content, there are 3 main categories you can start thinking through. We have personal, where you talk about your own stories, maybe examples of what you learned as a new manager, how you negotiated your salary, or maybe why you volunteer for a specific organization. We have educational, so you teaching your network something, how to be better on video, tips for more effective meetings, how to influence. Professional, more focused on industry news or trends, something like the future of work. And often with this, you'll post an article, a news article that came out, and add some commentary to that. And oftentimes, and which is great, the two to three of these will intersect. Now, before you post any content, I want you to all think about turning on creator mode. So to turn this on, you're going to want to scroll down on your profile, and you'll see an option here to turn it on. And then you'll see that you can add up to 5 hashtags for topics that you're knowledgeable about and want to be discovered for. So quick group activity here. If you had to choose right now just one hashtag to add on your profile right now, what might you add? It can be literally anything. It can be hashtag career, hashtag management, if any of you are managers, hashtag team culture, hashtag influence. Like, what is something that you feel like you can talk to comfortably and that you would feel comfortable adding as a hashtag on LinkedIn? So if anyone feels up for sharing, I'll give it 20 seconds or so, since we're a little short on time here. Or whatever function you're in. If you're in marketing, hashtag data. Junie, product and customer experience, 2 great ones. I'm sure those both have quite large followings as well. Amy, finance, another good one. I actually did a session earlier today. Someone else did hashtag finance as well. Those are great. Thank you for sharing. All right, so with creator mode turned on, you'll notice a few changes to your profile. Your connect button becomes a follow button. You can share up to 5 topics that you want people to know you talk about. Your featured and activity sections will move higher up on your profile. You become more easily discoverable, and you get early access to creator tools. Now, one of the best places to go to get even more in depth if you are interested is LinkedIn's Creator Hub. I think Amy's gonna send the link through. Thank you, Amy. So feel free to check it out here. Next, let's talk about the power of commenting. So I've always found commenting to be a bit lower stakes and pressure than posting. Comments are super important to the algorithm as well, whether you're posting on someone else's post or responding to comments on your own post. Now, I want you to all keep in mind that when you comment, you want to make sure it's adding something of value. So instead of something like this, I agree, well said, thanks for sharing, or congratulations, you're going to want to try something like this. I agree with you here. I'd also add relationships are key when building influence. Talk to someone you don't normally talk to. And don't forget to manage up with the leadership team. So I'm providing my own insight, my own advice here, so others can learn from me and hopefully follow me and engage with me in the future. Lastly, let's talk about connecting with others on the platform to build our influence. So I encourage you all to connect with others whose careers you admire or people you might be interested in learning from. Being connected to the right people gives more visibility into your work and just also opens up the doors to meeting new and interesting people who might be able to help you down the line. So you can use a message like this one to really increase your chances of your request being accepted. So hi name, I'm a title at company. I've been following your content and I've found it really valuable as I look to grow my expertise on topic. I'd love to connect with you. Now, one pro tip that a lot of people still miss on LinkedIn is adding it into the connection request. So don't just hit send after you click connect. Make sure to add a note. You'll add this message in there and they'll see it in the connection request. Now on to our recap. What do you want to focus on when building expertise on LinkedIn? Do you want to turn on creator mode and figure out the types of posts and the formats? Do you want to comment, or do you want to network? Again, that's turning on creator mode and figuring out the types of content and the content formats, comment or network. I think someone earlier in the chat said they were hoping to network more. So this would, you can use that message and reach out to anyone within your company as well. All right. Now thoughts on this one? That's okay. I know LinkedIn is new for a lot of people, so it's a lot of information to absorb. So if something comes to you later, feel free to add it. So we just went through the whole RAVE model: relationships, appearances, visibility, and expertise. Thank you everyone for tuning in, for contributing to the chat. Just want to remind you all, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a very, very short feedback form here. If you can please fill it out, it goes a long way in helping me just know what I did well, what I can do better next time. So if you can take 30 seconds to fill that out, I really appreciate it. And then also for anyone who wants to learn more about LinkedIn, I have this free resource here for all of you. I know we went a little bit over, so or not over, but we don't have as much time left for Q&A, so I'm happy to stay a few minutes extra if Junie and Amy are able to. But I'd like to turn it over now to Q&A. Is Junie? Okay.
I'm still here. And
Okay.
I'm looking at the chat, but everyone's just very appreciative of you, Lorraine, and just like your talk today and saying their gratitude and thank you for being here.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, thank you all for contributing. It's nice when it's a smaller group and you can kind of get to know, recognize some of the names, and it was really great to see those on camera who turned their cameras on earlier.
Awesome. I did share the link for the feedback so folks can
Thank you.
click
Yes,
on it.
please.
And,
Thank you.
yeah, share their feedback on the session or anything that they would like to share with Lorraine. If you folks have any questions for Lorraine, you can either put in the chat or maybe come off mute and ask. I'll give folks a couple minutes.
Yeah. I know there's always so much information in my talks, and so I'm more introverted, so like if I were in this talk, I'd be like, give me some time to to process first what I just saw before I come up with my question. So
yeah, I guess on our side we had another session around like self-advocacy. So there's a lot of theme of just like how do we self-advocate, and it's okay to self-advocate without feeling like, I don't know, ashamed or feeling, I don't know, bad about it. And it's important.
Right.
So it was great to reinforce that message today and hearing that.
Yeah.
That it's good to advocate for yourself, to build influence at work and with people around you. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's I mean, we should just assume that everyone is out for themselves and cares about themselves the most, right? So if you imagine everyone around you who you would imagine supporting you, I mean, hopefully you have a great manager and all of that, but like, let's say your manager only cares about their advancement, right? Like, who's left to support you? It's just going to be you. So we have to learn this skill, and it's really important that we fight for ourselves and you know, work to make our work seen.
Yeah, totally. I love that message.
I'm curious, Lorraine, given that you worked at LinkedIn,
Yeah.
did your kind of tactics for building your own personal influence and brand come before you worked at LinkedIn? And was that an interest of yours, or was it also helped along by the fact that you worked there and and the culture there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was actually one of the founding editors there. So when I joined, LinkedIn was only just starting to kind of move into the content space. So before I joined, I was very into the platform, but just from like a profile, like resume perspective. And then after I joined, yeah, like I, you know, obviously learned best practices and things like that. And I built quite a large following while I was at LinkedIn, but it wasn't until after I left and joined my next company, Prezi, where I did the public speaking, and then posting about the public speaking on LinkedIn really helped me become a lot more visible, and people saw, oh, she does this, she does that. Prezi saw that I was getting more comfortable speaking, and they would invite me to attend like there was like a media roundtable with Zoom that they wanted me to represent the company for, and we try to partner with certain companies, and they would ask me to go in and speak to teach them something while also, using the product. I'm using it right now. So yeah, it was like a kind of a combination, but obviously the platform is so powerful. So I kept using it, and then it just continues to just open up the door to a lot of things. So that's why I'm still using it.
Yeah. Loved hearing about your personal public speaking journey. And so, yeah, it's
Yeah.
really great to hear about your personal stories.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know what, well, I do know what came over me to do it. I was working at a presentation company, and I saw some people, who did a really good job, and so it inspired me. But it took me a while to get to that point because, like I said, public speaking can be really scary, and so it's easier to avoid it. But often the scary things are the things that have the biggest reward and are the things that are going to challenge us to grow. And so I can definitely say that has happened with the public speaking.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lorraine. I think we're at time. And
Okay.
if there's more questions, I think maybe we can follow up offline. But I do want to thank you, Lorraine, for coming and speaking with us today on how to build influence. And then just everyone here just joining us today and being part of the session. If folks aren't on the AG PAVE channel, please add yourself, or we can include you in there. And then we'll also share out some links as well that we talked about today, just so if folks want to connect, they can find LinkedIn and other information.
Amazing. Thank you. And thank you everyone for filling out the form, and hope you all have some tactical skills you can use, and
Recording
if any
stopped.
questions come up, just feel free to send me a note on LinkedIn.
Sounds great. Thanks again. Hope
Thank
everyone
you.
has
Thanks, Lorraine.